We're going to be working on a 2011 Volkswagen Jetta TDI today. Now, this is going to be getting quick struts in the front and shocks in the rear. And the reason we are going to be doing that, grab my flashlight. I'm guessing you guys can already see the issue, but it has broken the spring, and my flashlight's also about to die. So that coil spring is broken and making a hell of a noise. We'll see if the other side's broke too while we're here. It's also going to be getting an oil change. Nope, that one's still in one piece. So we're going to be doing those. I'm probably going to start with the rear shocks because the rear shocks are going to be easier. Just get those done, then we'll hop right back on the front here and start ripping the front struts out. The front struts on these take a little bit of work to do. They were kind of like the BMW ones and stuff like that, where they clamp into the knuckle. So you have to spread the knuckle and then drive them out, and there usually isn't enough clearance or suspension travel to drop the suspension down and get the strut out. So we're probably going to end up having to pull the whole knuckle off and separate them on the floor. So, got one bolt right here, and two in the top that mount that shock. I don't know if we're going to be able to get that bolt out though, with the spring in the way. Might have to release the lower control arm and swing it down. Alright, so we got the lower bolt out for the control arm here. Now we're going to really carefully release the tension on this control arm so we have slack in this spring here, because we need to get access to this bolt. Now I can probably do it right now with an extension, but I don't like the setup, so we're just going to get this dropped out of the way and make sure it's safe first. Went ahead and got the spring removed. Now that it is, an impact in there and get that lower bolt out. So on the bottom is disconnected. Now we need to get those top two bolts out. And there it is, the 216s are out. So we need to get this cap off now. We can get that isolator and this dust boot off and get them swapped over to the new shock. And that's one side done. So we're gonna go repeat the same process on the other side, and then we're gonna move to the front and start doing the front struts. So we're starting on the front here. I've got the wheel off already. First thing we're gonna do is get this sway bar end link out of the way. So it's an 18mm hex, but I can almost guarantee when you hit it, it's gonna spin the center. So just put a wrench on it, and then it's an M6 triple square to drive it out of there. So we got the caliper hung out of the way. We've disconnected the brake pad sensor, which you probably could have left that because we took the whole bracket off. We also disconnected the wheel speed sensor, so this stuff is all sat out of the way. We've got the bolt out of the CV. That is 24mm, 12 point, and that thing is tight. I actually had to go get the Milwaukee impact. The DeWalt would not get it off. Next up, we're going to go ahead and get the pinch bolt out of the back here, and I'm going to start driving a chisel in there to loosen this up. After that, we're going to come down here and do the 3 bolts for the ball joint, and that should give us enough downward movement that we can get the strut out of the knuckle here. Once that's done, we'll go to the top side and get the 3 bolts out of the top plate. Now on this one, we're going to want to be careful because we do have a broken spring in here that doesn't try to jump out when we get it out of there. Because I can't quite tell, but it looks like the broken piece of spring is actually wedged up into the body right now. So there is some tension on that still. And there it is. I ended up taking the tie rod end off and just taking the whole knuckle off, because I really wasn't able to get a chisel in here to split this joint. But once it was off, just tap the strut right out. So I will go grab the new one for this side and we'll get it back together. As you see here, this thing really came apart. So the spring is broke, The bearing surface that it pivots on for the steering is messed up. This thing was making a hell of a noise. That's pretty much going to do it for the reassembly. Now, when I put this back together, I bolted the strut into the car, then I slid the knuckle up on and put this jam bolt through the back. Now that bolt holds the knuckle from sliding down because there's an indexing tab on the back that goes through that slot. So I threw that on, then we put the CV through, dropped the ball joint down through the lower control arm, put some bolts in it, and then from there the reassembly was pretty much just a reverse of taking it apart. The reason we took this apart in one big piece, like I said, is I couldn't get a good chisel back in here to split this enough to kind of spread that knuckle back out, because as it sits there with the bolt for a while, it pinches down in on this. Now, the only thing I have left to do is to torque the bolt for the front CV, but I'm going to have somebody else give me a hand and sit in the car and hold the brakes while I do that. So we're going to leave this side right here. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, get it all the way done so that I don't have to pull somebody off another job for a couple minutes just to do both of these at the same time. I'm not going to bother recording the other side, just like with the back. The exact same as this. The only difference is both front struts are the same. So this side, how you see, goes back and hooks in, it'd be on this side for the other one. They are the same strut left and right. But as far as everything else, all identical. So if you see what I was saying on the other side, this is opposite how it is on the other one. Also, there is no brake pad wear sensor on the right side of the car. So that's also just one less thing you have to worry about. So I'm working over here getting these top strut bolts out on the passenger side, and I saw that piece of cardboard just sticking up out of the radiator. So to start with, radiator's missing the top screws. It's loose, not the radiator, the fan and the shroud. But that thing blocks about half the radiator. It's 95 today. It's not supposed to be below 95 for, I don't know, I think it's like the next 2 weeks. So we're gonna go ahead and pull that and let the customer know that I think they forgot to pull that back out when it came to summer this year. I'm actually surprised I don't have an overheating concern with that. That's quite a bit of blockage. So this is what I did on the other side. The strut's in here now. I don't have it tight yet. I will run the bolts up before I go too much further here. But you put the strut on first, then I'll take this knuckle, slide the knuckle up on, and you see that little tab that sticks up right there? That has to go down below where the cross bolt goes through. And once you put that bolt in, it sits there. And then when you tighten it up, it pinches, and that's the connection on the bottom of this. So if you do it this way when you're going back together, it makes it a lot easier than trying to have to hold all the weight of that knuckle with the strut while you're trying to get the top bolt started in it. Volkswagen goes through a lot of steps to make this diesel quiet. So the bottom of the engine, it's got insulation on it. It's very heavily insulated on the top to stop valve train noise. And all this stuff here is to help dampen noise underneath of it. It's interesting.